Welcome everybody, Dave with Backcountry e-bikes. Today I'm going to teach you how to replace your motor, the Ultra motor on this bike. One thing to keep in mind is if you can get the bike upside down, it's a lot easier to work on the motor to get it back on and off. You want to make sure that you keep the display, or anything on the handlebars, off the hard surface. So if you have to build up some protection under there to get it upside down, you don't want to set it on the screen. Okay, then once you get it up, you want to take the chain off the chain drive, the sprocket. We'll probably send it to you with the crank arms on and chain crank. So we're going to start. There's a little plastic cover right here. There's 3 Phillips screws in here. Remove that, just set it aside. And now there's 3 motor mount bolts that go through the motor and into the frame. There's an Allen wrench on the one side. Most of the time that's in there so tight you don't need to worry about holding it. It's just loosening these lock washers with the 13 and backing them off, and then with these mounted in there so good, we'll use a hammer bit that can thread on, and you can tap these loose. You have to, they are mounted in there really snug like a motor mount to keep this thing solid. And you have to tap them through. Be cautious of the threads on here to get the motor on. One thing to keep in mind as you are undoing the bolts and spitting them out with the crank on, you want to make sure that there's not a spider drive spline, so they can back all the way out, or they will get caught up. They do touch a little bit. You should be able to get them past the new one on. Basically, once you get the motor, pull it up, unplug the wires carefully. There's a little prong thing in the plug that you want to press and separate the wires. You don't really have to worry too much about what wire goes to what, because there's only one matching wire to each plug, and there will be a couple plugs that you don't need coming off the motor. As you can see, it's pretty snug in there and it is pretty tight, but you want to pull these bolts. Once you've completely removed the motor, set the new one back on there. Plug each one in. You want to make sure that you carefully lay the wires down through the bottom to be able to get that motor to get down in there tight. It's going to have some resistance on there. It's going to feel tight. If it's abnormally too snug, then you might have to pull it up and just make sure that those cables are not getting pinched really hard or damaging anything. And then once you get them on, you can hammer back, tap the bolts back. Your shift sensor, it's gonna, so as you're shifting, it's gonna help the bike relax a little bit. And see, I put a little tape on some of ours just to keep them snug. As you can see, the motor itself is going to have white cables. The bike has black cables, and you just don't ever want to put black going into black because there is some that will fit. The battery, obviously, the main battery plug. This is the main controller running up to the handlebars. You've got a speed sensor that runs back here to the bike, and this speed sensor is critical. The first thing to check if you're ever out on the trail and you're losing power and different things, check this. Make sure your magnet is lining up right here on the flat spot, not on the end, but through the flat spot. Get it bolted back on, get the cover on, and you should be off.